Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I am going to be giving you my take on the May 22nd, 2020 New Moon in Gemini. It will be part one of two. And first of all, as far as the basic meaning of a new moon in astrology, for those of you that may not know, well, new moons can be very contemplative. They're more about self-analysis, introspective. They can represent, signify new beginnings. It could be like that planning stage for something. Given that this is in Gemini, this could be the start of a writing project that may end when the full moon is in Sagittarius later on in June. It could culminate with something being published, because Sagittarius, of course, is about publishing. So, and also it could be the time when somebody begins asking questions, being inquisitive, and a time when you're talking about the full moon in Sagittarius coming up in June, again, about having that culminate with finding the veritable unabashed truth. And the thing about it too is, it might be questions, given that we're in this coronavirus era and period, it might be where we might be getting a lot of questions about this, and maybe the answers may come and be unveiled when we do have that full moon in Sagittarius in June. Now, the thing about this too is, when we're talking about, again, going back to basic meaning, full moon, new moons in astrology, can be a time when people can be very rejuvenated and revitalized. That whatever may have prohibited or inhibited you may very well be discarded this time. Whatever might have been superfluous or frivolous may be thrown out, and saying, okay, I'm gonna make this fresh start. There's no excuses. It's a time for a lot of very abundance and a surfeit of energy at this time. And given that it's in Gemini, and maybe very spirited, vivacious energy, embarking on a new project or endeavor, very vivaciously, in a spirited and even sprightly manner, very lively manner, perhaps, and maybe done with a lot of this youthful like exuberance. Now, the thing about this too is, when you look at new moons, I mean, as far as this new moon goes, given that it is in Gemini, well, it may impact all collectively, but especially people that have the sun, moon, or ascendant in Gemini, or the zodiac sign Cancer. Gemini, of course, because it's going to be in their own sign, and the zodiac sign Cancer, of course, because it is governed and ruled by the moon. And the zodiac sign Cancer, of course, could be very sensitive to all transits of the moon, and I think that it plays a very strong role in why Cancer can be very fickle, moody, and temperamental. Now, the thing too is, at this time as well, looking at this, you're looking at, well, if this is especially, I wanted to just go back to this, will even have a more intensified effect on others. Say if this is making say if this conjuncts one's Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, this could be a very strong aspect, and it could really have a lot of intensification as far as its energy goes and its impact on the person. Now, given that this is going to be in Gemini, this could be a new start in being more inquisitive, asking the questions that maybe you might have been hesitant and reluctant to ask previously. It could be some new start in some communication or journalism, some writing for many people. Especially if you're somebody that's a writer, this could be that opportune time where you may begin to start embark on some new writing project. This could be something too where you might begin to show more versatility in something. If you were a person that you felt like you were being a little bit stagnant and you weren't using all of your talents and your abilities to their maximum potential, this could be a time where you might figure out where you want to maybe diversify a little bit more and make use of all your talents, as opposed to maybe just one or two of them. And also could be a very strong period for many for multitasking at this time, and maybe some start that is associated with mobility. And as I stated before, the basic meaning of a new moon can be very much being very contemplative and more introspective. This is that time where many may be starting to maybe thinking about embarking on some writing project or something associated with some communication at this point in time, or it could be blogging, it could be doing something with writing or journalism or anything like data satellite communications, something that is associated with communications. And maybe if it's a time where you're a kind of person where if you're somebody that doesn't respond very quickly to things, and you feel that this might be a time where it might be the beginning period of responding quicker to things, because Gemini energy can manifest in quick responses. And also a time where if you haven't been talking enough to people, it could also be a period where you might start to be more loquacious at this time and more talkative, more so than ever. This could be a very strong period for many as far as that goes, especially if you're the kind of person that's been more quiet, more taciturn, a person that really has not been talking a whole lot. And especially if you have like a chart, if your chart basically is one where it's more of indication for being more quiet as opposed to being more talkative. So anyway, well, for some people too, this could also be the start of a Gemini career or job or profession, especially if this falls in one of what I call one of the work or money houses in astrology. If it falls, say, in the 2nd, 6th, or 10th house especially, it could be a new period where somebody may embark on journalism or reporting. It could be telemarketing. I mean, Gemini, obviously, energy could be about very good selling. Gemini energy could sell basically everything but an igloo to an Eskimo, because they have that persuasive way about them and the way to manipulate words to get what's needed to be sold. And also could be something connected with another communication field, such as data or satellite communications. People may be starting position as a driver, or something working as a mail courier, or somebody that works in the post office. Anyway, well, also too, the thing I wanted, another thing to look at as well, it's also significant to look at the house this falls in, as that of course could impact the delineation and interpretation. Mine is going to fall in my 1st house in my natal chart. So the fact that it's in the 1st house of energy and vitality, that could even give more abundance of energy to start whatever it is I decide to start on at this time, if I do indeed start something. But again, it could be something really being in the 1st house that gives me a lot of personal gratification and satisfaction. It could be doing something associated with writing or blogging. And the thing too is, and again, the 1st house is also the house of new beginnings, and it may be something that might be tied in. It may be somebody that was prominent, figured prominently in my early childhood. It could be somebody that was very instrumental in my outlook on life, since we're talking about the 1st house, or maybe somebody that may have been prominent one time in new beginnings. So for me. So anyway. Well, and also it could be, given that it's in the 1st house of self with me, it might be a more introspective period for me, where I'm contemplating myself, of just being generally more inquisitive, learning to ask more questions, not being so hesitant and reluctant in doing so. Well, also, I mean, if this falls in the 1st or 6th house of one's natal chart, in some cases, this could actually, I think, could manifest in a new Gemini health-related matter. It could be something connected with the lungs or the arms, the shoulders, something with the hands, even some breathing or respiratory issues. We're talking about, I mean, the coronavirus will likely still be around on the 22nd of May, and it could be that some people that may have thought, they were unscathed and they were in the clear as far as this goes, that they may be experiencing some respiratory issues or some breathing issues, and especially say if this is like hitting again in the first or sixth house. The first house in astrology, of course, is connected with the physical body. If it's in the sixth house, is tied in with health-related issues, or if it's conjunct the sun in one's chart as well. Could also be, if this is met, or it could be something connected, it might be nerve related, and especially if this is making, say, an adverse aspect to one's natal Uranus or even their natal Mercury at this time. So anyway, hold on a moment, people. Now, another example, let's say if this falls in the fifth house in one's natal chart, this could be a time too where one may take up something like a Gemini sport as an example, something that involves quick reactions and responses. It could be like badminton or ping pong or playing racquetball. Or, I mean, the fifth house is also connected with games. It could be doing something associated, like something like playing haiku or chess or lumosity. And in some isolated cases, some may be welcoming a new Gemini child at this time. And of course, the child would be a Gemini sun and moon, because it would be born at the time of the new moon. And another thing I want to talk about in this segment is that this the one good thing about this new moon in Gemini, that the only major adverse aspect it's going to make is going to be a square to Mars and Pisces. And the thing about it is Mars and Pisces can manifest in some cases as more energy putting into loafing, relaxing, lethargy, daydreaming, and fantasizing. So the danger is that trying to embark on this new moon Gemini energy may be a little bit more difficult because of this. And remember that Mars can be about things that are adversarial, and I mean you're talking about things one may be combating, and where Pisces is connected with diseases, debilitations that can't be eradicated or cured, and we are dealing with the coronavirus situation at this time. So you have to factor that into the equation. But there's no more, I mean, as far as major adverse aspects go, that is the only concern. Otherwise, there may not be a lot of conflict or opposition in terms of embarking on this new moon in Gemini energy. And another thing too is I really expect this to be a very busy period for people that are working, like say as drivers at this time. Many people, I mean, you're talking about we're at the end, at the latter part of May at this time. Many people, many places, locations in the world may have lifted these restrictions and stipulations connected with the coronavirus, and you might see more drivers, people out on the road more so than usual at this time. It could just be people just driving, commuting to their jobs, or people that are in that position as far as drivers goes. I expect a lot of activity more so than usual at this time, and you might encounter a lot more traffic around this time, I would say, as a result of that consequently. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.